Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Ultraverse podcast with Jason Casey, where we talk about all things Ultraverse. This week, we are doing our first nutritional deep dive, and Chase chose to do that on electrolytes.
Yes, electrolytes is something that I think a lot of ultra runners really struggle with sometimes, and I think that there's also quite a bit of bad information out there.
Mm-hmm.
So please let us know if you like these deep dives on nutrition. Comment. Let us know if you think they're interesting, helpful, boring, terrible. We can handle it. Just let us know.
And Chase is mostly going to take the reins on this because this is something that he's really educated himself on, and I will be in charge of the PowerPoint.
She's my clicker.
I'm the clicker. So let's get into it.
So first of all, why should you listen to me? That's a damn good question.
I don't.
Nobody else does. I do have a master's in clinical nutrition, and basically everything I learned when I was getting that degree, I applied to endurance sport, specifically ultra endurance sport. It's not a certificate that you can just get in a month or two. There's a lot of certificate programs out there, and I'm not talking shit on those. I'm just saying that an actual degree is a lot different than
For sure.
a certificate.
Yeah.
You can get a certificate in a month or so, and my master's took me about 3 years, 54 credit hours, and 21 different 3 to 4 month courses encompassing all different areas of nutrition, ranging from nutritional biochemistry to sports nutrition. There were entire 3-month courses just on certain groups of vitamins and minerals. It was a great program, and I'm not trying to pound my chest or anything. I'm trying to establish credibility, but I did graduate near the top of my class and never got a grade under 90%. And I think it is important for people to actually be picky about the sources, because nutrition is a thing where there's a lot of fads and there's a lot of shitty information floating around. And it's also one of those things that there seems to be a lot of self-proclaimed experts on. It's
Yeah.
kind of like politics.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that they're an expert on it.
Yeah.
And everyone has an opinion. So I think you should be picky about where you get your information. And I'm not saying that I know everything by any means. I get stuff wrong. And Casey, I think you wrote like a 20-page paper as part of your nutrition graduate program, because Casey does also have a graduate degree in nutrition. But you wrote a paper about that topic, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So I wrote my literature review on the misinformation in the nutritional space. And as I kind of predicted and already knew, most people get their nutritional information from Google, from social media, and not peer-reviewed scientific resources. So they basically get a bunch of shit from the internet.
Yeah. And from random people, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. And passed down from family, misinformation and myths for sure.
But I mean, you had to have like 20 or 30 sources for
I
that,
did,
didn't
yes.
you, too?
Yeah, everything had to be peer-reviewed. Yeah.
So aside from our degrees in nutrition, I'm also an ultra runner. I've been ultra running since 2014. I'm not going to sit here and talk about ultra running accomplishments, but I've ran in quite a few races. And so I've not only learned about it academically, I've had the opportunity to put that knowledge into action during races and during training for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
So why a podcast on electrolytes? I think the main reason that we're starting with this one is just because we've seen in race directing experience, a lot of people really screw this up likely because of what we just talked about, bad information, misconceptions. Can you think of, Casey, so I'm not talking the entire time, can you think of a situation during a race that has to do with electrolytes where we've seen a bad decision made?
Well, for sure. I mean, I'm not going to call out any names.
No, name them.
No, but definitely. I mean, we've seen people that, first of all, they don't take any electrolytes in. We've seen people come in cramping and want potassium pills and just things like that I think you're probably going to cover later in the discussion. But yes, I've seen lots of terrible life decisions.
Yeah, those are two really good examples, actually, and we'll kind of get into that. But let's jump into it.
Woo, so what are we going to talk about?
So we're going to talk about electrolytes that are lost in sweat, the importance of electrolytes, electrolyte ratios, recommendation, things to avoid, and my favorite section, stupid shit people do, which
We
we're
should
going to
make
have
that
in
that should be a whole podcast.
yeah. We're going to have that section in every nutritional deep dive.
And what won't we talk about?
We're not going to talk about the ideal forms of each electrolyte. And that's not because these aren't important. They are super important, but I just think it's beyond the scope of this particular podcast, and I think it would take too long. And I think that we could get into that with a future podcast that's going to have everything to do with Proxima C. I think lastly, before we get into it, just keep in mind we're talking about electrolytes as they apply to ultra endurance sport, not as they apply to hanging out in your house and everyday living. It's much, much different.
For sure.
So just keep that in mind. I'm not giving advice as far as how you should take in electrolytes at home.
Yeah, this is purely for the ultra endurance.
Absolutely. So some key points to understand, first of all, sodium is king. Sodium is the king of the electrolytes. Sodium and chloride are the two electrolytes that are lost in the highest concentrations during endurance activity. Of the two, sodium is by far the most important to replenish. Why is it the most important to replenish? One, because it will wreak havoc on performance and health by far the quickest when left unchecked. Additionally, your body also stores much more of the other electrolytes when compared to the amount that you actually lose during activity. And two examples of that. For example, sodium, the average individual has about 65 grams of sodium stored in their body. And that doesn't mean you have 65 grams to lose. Your performance and your health is going to go to shit long before you lose that much. It doesn't take that much. But just as a point of reference, you have about that much in your body. And during endurance activity, the average individual will lose about a gram an hour, depending on heat, depending on how much sodium that they lose. And then compare that to potassium, which is probably the second most critical electrolyte to replenish. You have about 180 grams of stored potassium in your body, so about 3 times as much. And you lose about 300 milligrams per hour of potassium. That's about 100 times as long that it would take to totally deplete your potassium compared to your sodium, based on those numbers. So for shorter duration exercise, like less than 3 to 4 hours, the other electrolytes, aside from salt, are likely not even necessary to replenish. You could probably get away with just worrying about sodium for short duration endurance activity, weightlifting, and for other sports, However, for extended duration activities like ultras, depletion of any electrolytes will, at the minimum, negatively impact your performance. And lastly, sodium is king for all the previous reasons and because of its function. Sodium helps maintain fluid balance in the body and is critical when it comes to nerve signaling and muscle function. Maintaining fluid balance is essential as it impacts how much you are peeing out compared to how much you are retaining in your body and how much you have at a cellular level. So number 2, heat acclimation is essential for optimal performance when fluid and electrolyte demands are high. When you become heat acclimated, you tend to sweat sooner and lose less electrolytes in your sweat. So this is one adaptation, but there are many others, such as decreased perceived exertion in the heat, enhanced blood volume, lower heart rate in the heat, and just overall better performance when running in the heat.
So with the heat acclimation, what are some things that you can do to heat acclimate?
First of all, I think the best thing that you could do is to just go run in the heat. Ideally you are in a place where the temperature will slowly increase throughout the year, and you
Mhm.
can be running in it as you are training and as your training progresses, and it will slowly get hotter, and it won't be that big a deal to acclimate to the heat. Um, but I also understand that a lot of people sign up for races that might be hotter than where they live too.
Yeah.
So you could also do the sauna thing. And what research shows, the last time I looked, and this was probably a couple years ago, but I highly doubt that it's changed much, is that 10 consecutive sauna sessions. Actually, let me back up a little bit. A preheated sauna, you go run for about 30 minutes and increase your core temperature a little bit of low aerobic exercise, and jump into a preheated sauna. That's a sauna session, and stay in there for 15 to 25 minutes, I think is what it was. 10 days in a row, and you're fully heat acclimated,
Hmm.
supposedly. Which I love the sauna. We have a
Yeah, we
sauna in
have a
our
sauna.
garage, and I use it 6 days a week. It's not just for heat acclimation, it's great for a lot of other health things, and it's super relaxing.
Yeah, I love sitting in it.
Number 3, another thing that a lot of people just don't realize when it comes to electrolytes is that so much of it is about the ratio of the electrolytes you take in. And primarily, the primary concern is the sodium to potassium ratio.
Mhm.
So as far as the sodium potassium ratio, it should be 3-to-1 to 4-to-1, in that range. 3, higher number, is sodium, lower number is potassium. So 3 to 4 times as much sodium as potassium.
Yeah.
A lot of people fuck that up.
Yes.
A lot of people. And probably just because most people don't realize it. And then you also want to replace what was lost. That is the goal of taking in electrolytes. You're losing more electrolytes during endurance activity than you are when you're just sitting on the couch,
Mhm.
because you're sweating, and you lose electrolytes in sweat. So with the next slide, we'll go into what actually is lost in sweat. Okay, so electrolytes lost in sweat. These are averages. These aren't exact. It's totally different, not totally different, but it can vary significantly from person to person. But I looked a few years ago when we were initially formulating Proxima C, and I looked again within the last few months. It's still basically the same. This is about what the average individual loses in a liter of sweat. So as you can see, 1 gram of sodium per liter, 300 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of calcium, and 30 milligrams of magnesium. So, like I said, the range can be quite large. But also notice that this is electrolytes lost per liter of sweat,
Mhm.
not lost per hour, because that's
Mhm.
not a thing. That does not make sense. You don't have a predetermined amount of sweat you're going to lose in an hour. So why would you have a predetermined amount of electrolytes that you would lose in an hour?
Mhm.
You lose electrolytes in sweat. How much sweat you lose depends on a lot of factors, like
Mhm.
the conditions, the temperature, the humidity, the altitude, the intensity of your exercise, your hydration status going in, um, heat acclimation, like we
Mhm.
just talked about, and a lot of different things. So it doesn't make any sense to think of sodium and electrolyte replenishment in that way. You should replenish based on the amount of liquid consumed to maintain fluid balance, not in per hour,
Yeah.
electrolytes per hour, which is, a lot of people mess that up because so many fueling strategies are calories per hour,
Yeah.
which actually makes a hell of a lot more sense
Yeah.
because you can kind of guess how many calories you're going to be burning per hour and how much calories your gut can handle per hour. But it's not the same with electrolytes.
Right.
Keep in mind that you'll also lose chloride, and those amounts of chloride aren't too far off from what you see with sodium, but much less critical to replenish than sodium, as long as you are taking in some of your salt in the form of sodium chloride, which is table salt. It's the most common form of salt. You'll replenish enough chloride to maintain performance and health. So keep in mind that most sport drinks, like the biggest names in sports drinks like Gatorade, do not even come close to being able to replenish this amount. So that's why you do see like the fuels that are specifically designed for endurance sports and ultra endurance sports. They have a hell of a lot more sodium and so on than this. Gatorade, for example, has about 420 milligrams of sodium per liter. And what did we just say that the average individual loses in a liter of sweat? About a gram, so about 1,000 milligrams. So it doesn't have, likely for the average individual, half as much as what they need.
And I think just so many people don't realize that.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't Gatorade work? You know, that's
Yep.
just kind of what they're always like when you're growing up playing sports, you're fed like during basketball and during games and stuff, you're just fed that. But that's specific to those sports, which is
For
not
sure.
the same thing as ultra running.
Yeah, and Gatorade is probably totally sufficient for those
Right.
sports, you know, that are lasting like 2 hours.
Right.
You don't really have time to get in a situation where it's going to significantly impact your performance. So, with all that being said, how much liquid should you be taking in an hour? Most recommendations call for anywhere between 450 to 900 milliliters of liquid per hour, depending on conditions, sweat rate, etc. Huge variance on that depending on weather. I mean, that's the big one. If it's 90 degrees, it's going to be so much different than if it's 40 degrees, you know. And if it's really hot, might have a variance that stems far beyond 900 milliliters per hour even. But the best way to determine what you need, because again, huge variance among individuals as well, is by determining your sweat rate. So determining your sweat rate does not tell you exactly how much sodium you lose in sweat, but it will get you headed in the right direction and may be all you need to know. If you want to take it a step further, you could buy a Levelen test. I think that's how you pronounce it. Levelen has do-it-yourself tests. They're about $200. And the last I looked, they were on back order. But you can actually take one of those tests, send it in, and it will tell you how much sodium you're actually losing in sweat.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. But for the average individual, I mean, just go by these numbers, and if it works for you, save your $200.
Yeah. We also will link below a link to where you can figure out how to determine your sweat rate as well.
Yeah, I actually wrote a article on that. It's on our website, and you could also go to the website and go to blogs and then search for
sweat rate or electrolytes.
Sweat rate, yep. Okay, this is our favorite slide. This is dumb shit people do. So, first of all, taking extra potassium for cramps. This is one that we've seen so many times, and it's to me, it's totally understandable that people do it, to be honest with you. But you should take it easy with potassium. The electrolyte ratio is the most important thing, as I mentioned earlier. Most, if they're good formulations, most endurance fuels like Proxima C have the correct amount of sodium compared to potassium. Remember, you need 3 to 4 times as much sodium as you do potassium. The fact or the conception that potassium cures cramps is overhyped bullshit for the most part. When it comes to cramps, they are mostly caused by overstressed muscles, dehydration, not enough liquid, not enough salt. That's the primary electrolyte that they're caused by. Or an electrolyte imbalance. So most of the time, taking potassium is going to screw that up even worse. Cramps are almost never caused by a lack of potassium when talking about endurance sports. So what does that mean? Stop it with the coconut water and potassium pills. I'm not saying coconut water is bad. It's great outside of ultra running, but it has the exact opposite ratio that you would want during an ultra or during endurance activity. It has about 3 to 4 times as much potassium as it does sodium.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's easy to see where this misconception came from. So, Casey, what did they tell you, like when you were in high school, if you were cramping?
Eat a banana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, they told us the same thing.
Yeah.
Eat bananas.
Bananas cure
You
cramps.
need some potassium. You need some
Mhm.
potassium.
Mhm. And I'm sure, like, people are like, "Oh, I wake up with cramps at night," and, "Oh, you need potassium. You need more potassium."
And maybe in everyday living, people do have a potassium
Mhm.
deficiency
Yeah.
because potassium is a pretty hard thing to get from food.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't get enough. And the fact is, when you're not doing endurance activity, you actually need more potassium than
Mhm.
sodium. That's what's good for you. I mean, that's better for your blood pressure and things like that.
Yeah, I think people maybe just took the situation from, "Okay, well, that's what I need during every day. That must be what I need when I'm running too," which, I
Yeah.
mean, that's not a stupid leap, but it's wrong.
Yep. Exactly. So, the next thing, and we kind of went into this earlier, the next stupid thing that people do is planning sodium per hour or electrolytes per hour
Mhm.
rather than sodium or electrolytes per liter of water consumed. So 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium per liter of fluid is a good starting point, but higher concentrations might be appropriate in the heat. So if you just said, as far as the ratio is concerned, if you just simplified this, you could say that I need about 1 gram of sodium per 1 liter of water
Mhm.
that I take in.
Mhm.
And that would probably be the best starting point for you. You'd likely be very close to what you need, close enough that it's not going to negatively impact your performance. Um, and it makes for easy math,
Yeah.
right? It simplifies the thing.
Yeah.
So too much salt with not enough liquid equals bloating and upset stomach. So that's why this ratio is so important of liquid to sodium.
Mhm.
And too much liquid with not enough salt will actually dehydrate you. And that's what people do not realize. This is a very common mistake too.
Yeah.
When it's really hot, people start chugging water and
Mhm.
water only, and it is literally dehydrating you because you are sweating out salt and you are not replacing it. You're
Mhm.
just increasing your sweat rate by taking in loads of water and totally depleting yourself of salt. Um, and that's what it does. It dehydrates you due to diluting your body of sodium and other electrolytes. Instances of exercise associated hyponatremia, which is a super dangerous condition,
Yeah.
are almost always associated with excessive water consumption without adequate salt intake. Overhydration with plain water is the major culprit for that. This is why you need to take in electrolytes according to liquid consumed. In terms of ultra running, too little salt is actually a more dangerous condition
Mhm.
than too much salt.
Right.
And I think we're kind of conditioned to be a little scared of salt
Mhm.
too,
Mhm.
because of,
Blood pressure.
yeah, because
Mhm.
of the things that excessive amounts of salt
In your daily life.
can do to you in your daily life.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which, I mean, those are real things. Um, so what's some more stupid shit people do? There's so much. um, yeah, believing optimal nutrition during exercise is the same as optimal nutrition during rest. That's just not true. You need more sodium than potassium during endurance exercise. Ideally, you get more potassium than sodium when at rest. And you can see why that's difficult because almost every food has sodium in it,
Mhm.
or added sodium. And most people do not achieve that in their everyday lives for those reasons.
Mhm.
What's next? Transitioning to pure water when their stomach turns
Yeah.
into heat.
Which we've kind of talked about a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But we've seen that at races.
So many times
They start to get sick and they associate it.
with
Well, I mean, just water sounds the best at that point,
yeah.
and I
Mhm.
get that, but you're just adding to your problems at
Yeah,
that
it's
point,
not gonna make it better. It's gonna make it worse.
and possibly The reason you're sick is because you're not getting enough salt in the first place, because that will turn your stomach and that will make you feel like shit for sure.
Yeah. So
What's next?
that's most of the dumb shit people do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's more.
We have examples, so
And I've done all this dumb shit too, so.
he wasn't always a genius.
That's right. So, yeah, here's some examples.
So, let's say this is something we've definitely seen. I'm cramping. Give me a coconut water, give me a potassium pill, blah, blah, blah. Now we know why that's stupid because that's not what you're needing.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't need potassium. You're
Right.
screwing up your ratio
Mm-hmm.
of sodium to potassium.
Yep. Example number 2, I'm going to do a handheld with 1 scoop of electrolytes and 1 handheld with just water. Why is that stupid?
So, in this case, Tailwind, but you could replace that with Proxima. Both of those have about 300 milligrams of salt per scoop, which is also 100 calories. So if you're doing one handheld with 300 milligrams of salt and one handheld with just water, a handheld is about 375 milliliters on average.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a total amount of liquid of 750 milliliters.
Mm-hmm.
And how much salt are you replacing?
Not enough.
300 milligrams.
That's not a gram.
And how much should you be replacing? So really, you should be having about 750
750,
milligrams
yeah.
of salt. They have 300. They're less than half.
Mm-hmm. So
So
an option would be to make it more concentrated, the one
yeah,
that you're carrying.
yeah, you could do that. You could carry both with Prox or Tailwind in it, or you could make one of them twice as concentrated, and
I
then
know some people do that.
yep, and then you'd be right there. Either one, because I totally understand that some people like pure water
Mm-hmm.
to drink as well.
Just like the palate cleanse. That's kind of how I would prefer to do it.
Yeah. So I mean, at that point, you'd be at about 600 milligrams of salt in 750 milliliters, which puts you a hell of a lot closer. And you could even put, 2.5 scoops in one or something like that. It's not hard to figure out.
Yeah.
What's next?
Stupid shit number 3.
Now, these are examples of what.
Well, yeah.
That's still stupid.
Still
shit.
stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm cramping. What are you drinking?
So this person, this is a real situation. That's why I wrote it. And they said, I don't know. I'm cramping. I said, what are you drinking? And they said, I'm taking in 1.5 liters of liquid per hour with 1 liter of Proxima. And it was Proxima in this particular situation. So you have to understand a few things about this, and this one's a little bit more complicated. The strength of the mixed Proxima at this particular race was 375 milligrams per 500 milliliters. In other words, 750 milligrams of sodium per 1.5 liters. So if he was taking all Prox, he was still only getting about half as much. It should be closer to 14 or 1500 milligrams of sodium with the amount of water he was taking. This was a really hot race. So, I mean, 1.5 liters is a lot.
That's a lot of fluids to be taking
even in a really hot race. The reason that Proxima C was mixed at that concentration is because most people do eat. I don't, but
you also
I'm going to
account
take
for that.
Yeah, I'm going to take my own Proxima or whatever, and I'm going to mix it according to that.
Right.
It's going to be stronger than what most people do, and it kind of works naturally in that if you're not going to eat, you're going to want more calories from Proxima as well, or from your endurance fuel as well. So you're going to naturally get more calories, and that's going to also give you more sodium. So it kind of works out.
Yeah.
Most fuels at races will not be mixed to a strength that is nearly sufficient to acquire all electrolytes unless drinking solely that drink and not water. And sometimes, most times, I'd say not even then. So figure out how much you need. Take salt tabs if you need to. And if you're eating, remember that's part of the equation. Okay, final thoughts. We're almost done already. That was fast. My mouth's dry. I need electrolytes. I need water. The next one you're going to do.
Mm,
You're going to do the next one.
great.
I don't know what the hell it's going to be about, but you're going to do it.
Boring.
Okay. First of all, food counts. Chronometer works well for estimation. That's an app you can get on your phone. If a major portion of your calories is not coming from food, just don't geek out on it. If it is, then you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But the electrolytes that you get from food count towards that total. Second, you need to be close, not exact. You don't need to memorize all of this shit, but you do need to understand the basics if you want to avoid performance detriments and perform optimally, which is always the goal, right?
I think it's like heartbreaking. Like you have trained for this race for a year and you've worked your ass off and you've done everything else right. And then it gets to race day and you mess something up like this that's preventable. That's just, it's hard for us to watch that too.
Absolutely.
When we know how hard people have worked and then we see them make terrible choices during the race and then end up DNFing.
Absolutely. And we try not to get into it too much with people's race strategies, even if we see something that we're questioning, because we just don't think that that's really our place.
If you want to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to ask, then go for it.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's the final thought?
The final thought. Ah, yes.
Yes.
Always remember, don't be a pussy. That is always relevant in ultra running. It is probably the most important piece of advice I could ever give.
Well, I don't even know why we made this PowerPoint.
Yep, that's all we needed. That's it.
That's it.
I hope you learned something, and I hope that wasn't too horribly boring. If you enjoyed this, like I said, let us know. Remember, nutrition, electrolytes, super complicated topic. I guess nutrition is a complicated topic. The electrolytes really don't seem too complicated to me.
Right.
You know, as long as you know, then you know. Remember, I get things wrong, so take all this with a grain of salt.
That was hilarious.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yes. This is a good place to stick in our ever-present discount code for this episode.
Oh, yeah. I almost forgot.
Because it's going up at the end of the month, we're going to go ahead and do a discount code for the sticks, which starts on my birthday in 2026. So come out and join us. The first 3 people to use the code Hootenanny will receive $25 off when they sign up for the sticks in 2026.
Hootenanny. Hootenanny. That's how you spell Hootenanny. I didn't know how to spell it, so I'll actually spell this one out for you.
Yes.
All lowercase.
Yeah. First 3 to use it.
If there is a specific nutrition-related topic that you want to get into, that's relevant to ultra running, let us know. Comment on this. Reach out to us. We'd love to talk more about anything else that you guys need advice on. Thanks. Thanks, guys. See you next time. See ya.